Hi, everyone. I'm Rejoice on Umatta Consultant Podcast. Thank you for being here. If today's your first time on our show, please make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels, especially Spotify. Today, we have the special privilege of speaking with Kevin. Kevin is the CEO of Lawrence and Company. I'd love for him to also introduce himself as he sees fit, and we'll dive right into the questions. So, Kevin, the mic is yours, please.
Great. Well, thanks for having me today. I'm excited to share with your audience about lots of insights and learnings from my world of spending 30 years consulting. So essentially, I started working with CEOs, mostly entrepreneurial CEOs, 30 years ago, which I almost hate to admit it's been that long. But I've been being part of their growth journey and learning with them along the years. And then I started working with them and their teams on the strategy and so it went from dialing in the leader and helping them thrive to working with them and their team to help the business thrive. And so now we're based in Vancouver, Canada, and we have clients all around the world. I've been fortunate to work in many countries around the world with great leaders who I've learned lots of. And because of the way we work with them in we call it their boardroom. We're like the lab. We're in the lab with them once a month and for a couple of days every quarter. We get so much learning about what works and what doesn't for those clients. And then we can cross-pollinate that with other clients in terms of how do you help organizations and leaders continue to grow. So we have a small boutique consulting firm. There's just under 20 of us based in Vancouver, although the team is all around North America, mostly every week. So we love helping people. We love helping people to thrive individually and make the organizations perform better too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Amazing work you guys are doing. I'm sure we're going to dive right into some of the questions to get more of an in-depth answer towards what exactly your team is doing. First question for you, Kevin. Why do you think some successful companies keep scaling while others quietly stall?
Yeah, well, that's from my most recent book, The Four Forces of Growth. And that's what I've been watching over 30 years. And initially I couldn't see it because I was still learning. But after seeing it hundreds of times, both the good and bad, essentially, when businesses get bigger, you've got more problems. And some people, the ones that stall, get pulled down by the problems. And the leader of the business gets distracted too much by the problems and they stop doing the things that grow the business. So think about it as if the pilot of an airplane, if their job is to get the plane to their altitude and then the destination, if the pilot gets distracted by some loose baggage under the plane or a unruly passenger in the back, and the pilot's busy in the back of the plane and not flying, who's flying the plane?
No one.
The plane's not good. Exactly. And it's going to either get into deep trouble or definitely not where it's supposed to go or when it's supposed to be there. So metaphorically, leaders are like a pilot, but they get pulled into the back of the plane and then they wonder why they're not getting to their goals or the organization is failing. Because there's so much activity and actions and issues in the back of the plane, the pilot could spend the whole flight there, but they know not to. We as leaders sometimes get distracted to the things that don't matter most. And problems are that because they're so magnetic and compelling.
Exactly. And also as human beings, how many things can you actually hyper focus in?
Yes.
It's just not possible for you to have your hands in every single thing. You need to delegate.
You do, and you also need to step away from drama. We love drama as human beings. That's why the most successful news organizations are bad news organizations. They've tried good news organizations. They don't work.
Yeah.
Because we're pulled to drama. We're pulled to problems because they're kind of exciting and they make us, but we're the real business, the thing that's really required to keep an organization growing or a person growing.
Right.
Sometimes it's kind of dull. It's not as exciting. It's actually harder. Right. Where problems don't take discipline and they're full of drama, as I said. So yeah, it's human.
Makes sense. What are the four forces of growth? Which one of them often catches CEOs off guard from your book?
Yeah. Well, the four forces of growth takes the concept of the four forces of flight and the early pilots, like the Wright brothers and all these amazing engineers figured out how to master the four forces of flight. And there's the lift of the wings that takes the plane up, thrust of the engine that pushes it forward. And you combine those two and you get altitude. Lift and thrust puts a plane in the air or gives you altitude. And in business, it's similar. It's the lift of the wings is opportunities, new possibilities, new customers, new markets, new products, new services. And then the thrust is courage. So
Right.
if you have opportunities to do more good things in your business and courage, you get growth. Good
Right.
things happen. And that's how every organization starts, how every charity starts, how everything. They see an opportunity and they have the courage to do something about it. But unfortunately, the opposite of the opportunities is the problems I talked about.
Mm.
And so what happens is that you can either get your org focused up on opportunities or down on problems, and gravity pulls you down.
Right.
So what gets organizations and leaders, all of us in trouble, is that we don't realize we're focusing too much on problems and we have a lot of courage. So we're spending all of our time fixing problems, and we are making things better, but we're just killing the growth engine of the business. Because nobody's focusing on new customers or new products or new locations. Everyone's focusing on customer service and quality, which are all good things, but you get lost in it. And if you only do that, if you get caught in what I call the improvement quadrant, what's when you have courage and focus on problems. If you get caught there doing too much improvement, in the short term, it looks great. In the medium term, your business or your team starts to fade.
Makes sense, actually.
Yep.
I completely agree with you. And then also, you don't have anyone focusing on innovation and competition and SWOT analysis, all those things.
You get all internal. You get all internally focused, and you are doing good things for your existing customers. Your existing customers will be very happy you're doing that. The problem is you're not growing those customers, or more importantly, bringing in new ones. But the existing business will look really nice. It'll just be small. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Kevin, at what point does success itself become a risk to future growth?
Well, when people get complacent or they get too proud of themselves.
The ego part.
The ego is dangerous. Like, even so, I was in a client last week, and we had a conversation. They're building a new facility. And I was like to the CEO, remember, we don't want it to be too fancy. Because when you're successful, you want to feel successful. And some people fall into the trap of building nicer offices and all nicer perks. But if your strategy is to be a lower cost provider, or to be, really to be, say a lower cost provider, but you have a fancy office, people will start to do fancier things, and you can often lose your cost advantage because you get, and so success, and that's an example, there's lots. But when you become successful and you start to feel good, which you should be proud that you're successful. You should. You worked hard for it. But then people will generally lose core disciplines. The example I gave was about cost. Sometimes they'll lose strategic discipline. The executives people will not go see the customers as much. Right. So success makes us complacent and lazy, and which is human. We start to relax because we're doing good. But it becomes when I'm in a room and people, so for example, one of our clients hit a massive milestone. They're hitting close to 50 million of profit. It's substantial. This is a larger client. They're a great company.
Okay.
But if you listen to the meeting, that you would almost hear it sounds like we missed the number. We didn't hit our profit goal because we're constantly talking about how we're going to be better going forward. So there's no celebration or party. It's like, okay, good. Let's have a toast, celebrate. But then it's like, but how do we do better? How do we do better next year? And so that's what we look for, is making sure that the ego is not creeping in and we're not staying stuck in celebratory or party mode.
Very true. Very true. It's also a reflective tool. But I wonder how many businesses build that into their operations.
We do. In our clients we work with, we built a lot of self-reflection and even asking about, okay, what did we do well? But what are we going to do better next time? We need to be better in the next quarter. How are we going to do that? We keep those conversations going. We also, interestingly, we always talk about our biggest mistakes or learnings.
I like
as
that.
a tool to keep us connected with the fact that we are good and we make mistakes, just so that our egos, including my ego, doesn't get out of control.
Exactly. I'm very appreciative you mentioned that because, as you mentioned, and my background is in human resources, so I tend to lean more towards behaviors of people.
Yes.
And I realize, including myself, we all make mistakes. There isn't a perfect human being on this planet.
Nope. No,
So
I wish.
unless we have AI and the technologies and all of those things, but as humans, the mistakes are going to occur. But taking time to sort of reflect, dissect what happened, it's a very humbling experience in
Yes.
business.
It's a humbling and it's enriching.
Yes,
It keeps us humble because we always have that side of us that's not perfect, but it's
right.
enriching because that's where the best learning comes from when we make mistakes. We don't
Yeah,
like it. We don't like to admit it. We also and being on the HR side of it, like and growing and developing of people,
right,
when senior leaders role model that for the rest of the organization, it's
right,
really powerful because then it becomes safer for people to
right.
share their mistakes, which are happening. We even have we have one of our assessments that we do annually on executive teams, and
Okay.
it indicates their willingness to share problems and mistakes as an indication
Wow.
of effectiveness. Yep. Yep. Just
Amazing.
yep.
That's really very good to hear.
Yep.
So, what are the earliest signs that a company is drifting off course? What are some things you have identified?
Yeah. I mean, there can be lots of them.
Mhm.
And also, well, in the four forces of growth, I talk about three major things that happens when companies get in trouble and they lose their performance. One of them is around the key people, the key leaders in the organization. I think it's the most important one. It's if you have the other two, okay. The other two is having a clear, compelling strategy that's very simple. Simple strategy that people can follow that will lead us to a better place and notably improving the org. Numbers so we know what's going on and we can really at any level people can understand where they're at and self-calibrate. So those are like basics. But the people part is when they get in trouble. I was just
Mm,
talking to another one of our clients this morning, and they're excited about what's happening in the future, but we don't have a strong enough team to do what we want. And
wow.
so what we look at on the people side is we in our work look for like the percentage of people that are thriving in their roles. We call them A players or aces. Everyone's got their own frameworks, but the
Yeah.
people who are doing great, who are really doing well in their jobs today.
Right.
And we particularly look at the leadership roles.
Mm.
So in those leadership roles, and let's just say, a company that was really doing great would have, say, 60% of their senior leaders thriving, like just we would call an ace in their job. Ideally, it'd be higher, but say they get to 60.
Mhm.
If that number drops, we're heading for trouble
Wow.
because it's a lower percentage of highly effective leaders.
Right.
And that doesn't hurt us today, but that will hurt us in the future because those highly effective leaders are ideally building teams of highly effective leaders.
Effective
So
people. Yes.
yes, because so the people engine, it hurts us 2 or 3 years in the future if we don't. But the percentage of highly effective people in leadership roles is the first. It's the biggest sign.
Mm,
Um, and on the strategy side, it would be that the goals that the organization has or the strategic plan, which where our firm spends a lot of time, isn't crisp and driving real business outcomes. It
right.
starts to look like a list of pet projects versus strategic drivers. So non-effective goals and then weakening team. Those two are big ones.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. What leadership behaviors most often derail growth, even in high performance CEOs?
There's so many. In my other book, Your Oxygen Mask First, there's like 17 different behaviors. There's 17 chapters about the different things that get people in trouble in the organization. It's the 17 most common coaching conversations I've had, and my
Right.
team has had coaching thousands of leaders. If I was to say the one, it's similar to the one I've said earlier, is that leaders' teams are getting weaker.
Yes.
Like, as you know, in the world of dealing with people, like if
Mhm.
I've got a team of 50 people or 10 people or 5, there's always somebody on that team that's thriving really
Right.
well, and there's always someone that's failing.
Right.
And leaders' inability to address the people that are failing in their jobs, and whether it's to double down and help them, which we would like to do,
Right.
or change their job or have them move on from the company.
Exactly.
Those caring and intense people decisions, people basically let their team die on the vine generally. They don't address it. They don't give the right feedback so they know that the person is failing, or they don't double down and try and help the person so they can get better. And then they end up with a high-performing team that just starts to basically fade away and rot and become a problem. And then the worst part is the leader himself then starts to fail.
Yes, because of the behaviors because
the behavior of not willing to have tough conversations and not willing to make tough decisions about people. Yes. It's like, I remember an example, like a company that I worked with a long time ago, we had a person on the team. She was amazing, but she didn't fit the culture. She was in the wrong company, although she was really good at her job.
Right.
And so we had a conversation with her manager saying, okay, you need to let her know, look, we love her work, but she's not a good fit with the team, and let her know what she needs to do in changing in her behavior.
Right.
And so he said he did. And this guy was like, we call him Mr. Nice Guy, the typical Mr. Nice Guy. So I knew him well, worked with him for years. I'm saying, by the way, how did that conversation go? Oh, it was great. Did you follow it up in writing as we discussed? Yeah, I totally did. Great. Send me a copy. I am not joking. What he had put as the follow-up piece of it felt closer to a love letter than you're going to get fired. Like, there's no way in heck she could have understood that she was going to lose her job.
Right.
And that's not fair.
And I think sometimes it stems from the relationship between the employee and the leader, and also the favoritism. Because I've noticed in the workplace, once a leader has a favorite, that person's bad behaviors or maybe inability to produce the results for the organization gets ignored.
It becomes like a blind to the leader. Now, it is your job to become your manager's favorite. Like, that's smart for the person. But from a manager, it does stem with that. And the bigger, on top of that, is fear of conflict. People are terrified of conflict, certain personality, and they don't want to say it. And so they are very loyal, and they're afraid of conflict at the same time. So that's why senior leaders, and not just the HR team, but the CEO and executives, need to constantly push on these people decisions. Like, what are you going to do to help them and make sure they know the truth?
Right.
That they're not meeting expectations. And when it's clear it's not going to work, what are you going to do to make a respectful change? Right. And we interestingly, even in we do strategy work and all the work to grow companies with our clients, we talk about those key leaders in most of them every 90 days or every 6 months. But we go through the list of every key leader, like an inventory review of our most important products. And then we have their leaders tell us where they're at and what they're doing to get them to either stay thriving or get thriving. So we really work hard on that one, because we know that if we're not pushing on it, it's very unlikely to happen.
Very, very true. I certainly agree with you. How do you see pressure and stress change the way leaders make growth decisions?
That's a great question. It depends on how they're wired. Under pressure, some people get more focused and make better decisions. And then some people, their brain cramps. Right. And then they almost freeze. There's other versions of it. Most people, in your Oxygen Mask First, we talk about something called resilience rituals. What are the rituals that you do daily and weekly to be at your best? And we look at body, mind, and spirit. So for body, it's, nutrition and exercise is on almost every single person's list. That's normal. But for mind, under stress, mind is, what do people do to get clarity and get grounded so we do make good decisions? And we hear everything, like walking can help people do that, meditation, journaling, therapy, prayer, depending on the person.
Right.
But we notice in times of high stress, those resilience rituals matter a lot more, because then you come from the place of making a decision from the best version of yourself,
Right.
not the version of yourself that's freaking out.
Right.
And so I think the ideal is to optimize it by really making sure you get yourself in a great mental space regularly so you can continue to handle the stress.
It makes sense. And I think everyone handles their stress a little bit different. And
Oh, yeah.
I like that. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like sometimes under stress, also having someone around you to give you feedback helps some people.
Feedback's a dangerous thing, though, because feedback often knocks a person down. So sometimes more likely support, or someone to vent to, or someone to sound things off of. Yes. Feedback's kind of a loaded term because people don't like it generally.
Especially higher executives or CEOs that are in a position of power and authority. So
I think it's every human. No matter what your title.
Doesn't matter.
I don't think I've met anyone who loves it unless they're asking for it. But generally, these things are human. We like to feel good. We don't want someone telling us that we're crap.
That's true. That is very true. So, what distinguishes a growth CEO from a strong operator or manager?
Mm-hmm. And it could be a growth CEO or a person leading a division or a team that's really good at growth. They generally spend a lot of time talking to customers and out of the business.
Okay.
They're focused on the growth. They're focused on where the organization is going to be in 2 or 3 years in the future. They're not dealing with today or this week or this month issues. So their focus is in the future, and they are building relationships and getting resources that relate to the future. Versus, so if we go back into the 4 forces model, they're in that growth quadrant doing activities that drive future growth versus in the improvement quadrant trying to fix short-term problems.
That makes sense. So, Kevin, how should leadership teams think differently if they want to grow and sustain that growth?
Yeah. The simplest thing, and if you look at the 4 forces of growth model, it's so simple. It took me years to figure it out, but it's so simple. You just got to look at how much time and energy are you and your team spending in the growth quadrant versus the improvement quadrant.
Right.
That's it. Driving future growth versus driving the effectiveness and improvement today. There's the other half of the quadrant. There's something called the analysis quadrant and the agony. Those are important. But you only need little bits of time in each of those. So it's the distinction is how much time, and some people put too much time in growth and not enough in improvement. That means their businesses will grow like crazy, but then they start to fall apart. They don't deal with enough of the problems. There's people like that. And then the other ones are the more common one as businesses get bigger is all the time goes down into the improvement quadrant, solving problems, and not enough on the future growth.
Very true.
So and look at how you're spending your time. Look at what you talk about with your team. What's the messaging to your team? What's the goals of the organization?
Right.
It's very simple, but when you're in the middle of it, it's hard and it's easy to lose your perspective.
Very true. What's one habit or discipline every scaling CEO must protect?
It's a great question. I think it's time talking to customers and in the marketplace. People they end up doing what I call playing office too much. They want to play office. They want to hang out in their office, talk to people in their office, meet in their office or on Zoom.
Yes.
But not in the market physically. So one of our clients that's just, really having a spectacular year, they spend a lot of time at industry conferences because relationships they meet in person at those conferences really help to drive their business.
Right.
But you can't do that on what happens in person is magic and what happens virtually is not.
Right.
It's convenient, it's transactional, but it's not strategic and building possibilities. So I would say time in the marketplace, whether it's conferences or meeting customers, whatever it happens to be. But time in where the customers are, engaging and learning and connecting with customers.
Makes sense. Very true. And I know you talk about this in your book as well, but we're also curious, when leaders look back, what separates companies that built a legacy from those who built on revenue?
Mm-hmm. Well, usually, and we really leverage the great research and work of Jim Collins and his book Good to Great, Built to Last, Great by Choice, all his research of building enduring great companies. Mm-hmm. Generally, they have a purpose, which is making an impact beyond profit. They're trying to do something great in the world. So one of our clients in Canada is called the Little Potato Company. They breed and sell these little colorful potatoes you'll see in bags in grocery stores everywhere in North America and other parts of the world as well. But they have little colorful potatoes that are small, bite-sized, healthy, easy to cook. And they truly want to feed the world better. And they want people to enjoy these things. And they're passionate about potatoes. We had a meeting yesterday where we're talking to some potential board members. And I was reminding them, like, I get emotional sometimes when Angela, the CEO, talks about the purpose of the company. And it's potatoes.
Right.
But it's not. They're trying to really make a difference in the world with this nutritious crop. And so these organizations have a purpose beyond profit. And that's something that not a lot of companies have. And if you don't have a purpose beyond profit, then you're just about profit.
Yes.
And those organizations, like in Jim Collins' research, they don't endure as long because it's just about money.
Right. And how much money can you obtain and keep that flow and satisfaction and happiness and all of those things?
Yes. Like and when an organization only thinks about money, you can feel it.
You can feel it, yes.
And as humans, we don't want to feel like we're there so they can only reach into our pockets and take our money. Yeah. It doesn't feel good.
No.
And you go into some of the best brands of the world and the companies in the world, and you feel something different. You feel it.
Their spirits, their stories, there's a connection to humanity, something given back.
You can go into a restaurant and you can tell when the manager is a good person trying to create a great hospitable experience.
Right.
And you can tell another one where they're just cracking the whip and they don't care. They're just trying to hit their numbers, and you can feel it.
Yes, you can feel it. You can feel it. We all have that informational access to get to feel what's happening.
Yes.
Kevin, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I really appreciate the insights you've shared with your book and also with your consulting firm. Is there any last minute words you would like to share, or if folks would like to follow you about the work you and your team are doing, how should they do that?
Yeah. Well, you can find us at lawrenceandco.com. Search Kevin Lawrence, Coach Kevin, or just search up Your Oxygen Mask First or Four Forces of Growth. You'll find it. You can get the book on Amazon. You can find us on our site. We got a newsletter. We share all kinds of insights. There's case studies of other companies and what they've done and tools. And I had a podcast for 3 years as well. I used to do. And so lots of resources there you can learn and find for yourself. The final thought I'd say is that like this journey of life is a blast. Last night we had dinner with one of our clients we've worked with for 24 years.
Yes.
And we've seen them, their business is just more than 10x. It's incredible how much they've grown and, and the relationships. But like growth is exciting and it's rewarding. Like I think it's the most fun thing to do. And you just have to learn a lot and get help along the way. But the journey of growing an organization and growing yourself, it's fun. And people have the answers. You just have to constantly learn and find ways to get a little bit better every day. I don't know. I think it's just a wonderful thing. And the more you learn, the easier it gets.
Very true. Very true. Appreciate those words of wisdom. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, we thank our audience for also being here. Appreciate you, Kevin, and your team. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.